Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Monday, April the 20th. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and Rachel Krychak, Betalytics, back on the show for a second time. First time here in the playoffs, and we're excited for both the Monday slate, 4 playoff games unfolding tonight. Game 2 in 3 venues, and the one series that is yet to drop the puck finally gets going tonight as well. Game 1 between the Anaheim Ducks and Edmonton Oilers. We'll get to that in just a little bit. First of all, the recap in yesterday will be pretty quick when it comes to Colorado, LA. Colorado did what they had to do, right? They controlled the flow. They had the better of the territorial edge, the shots on goal, the chances. Forsberg was the reason it was as close as it was. He had a really good game in net, but finally Colorado was able to be opportunistic, finish some of their chances. LA got it to within 2-1, but Colorado was able to hang on. I thought for LA, not a bad game, and they weren't as caved in as I thought they might be against Colorado, but the Avs found a way, got the job done 2-1. That game easily staying under. Of course, after yesterday, 7 series, 7 game ones, 7-0 first period under. I know a lot of people have been talking about that, and it's been an undefeated run so far in the playoffs of first period unders. Montreal, Tampa Bay, if you throw out the officiating, it was a great game. But the officiating, I thought it was over-officiated. Too many penalties. It became a penalty parade, a power play bonanza. But Montreal, boy, they made the most of their power plays. And what a game for Juraj Slafkovsky. He was all over the ice. He was like a demolition device. He was physical. He was hard on pucks. He was able to get the shot away quickly. Those one-timers that we saw on the power play. The great shot in overtime on the power play to beat Vasilevsky. And what a win for Montreal in game 1. And look, this is the elephant in the room. Nobody's mentioned it. I haven't heard anybody. Everyone's been talking up Tampa Bay. That's all I hear on mainstream NHL shows is talking up Tampa Bay, this great experience, this great pedigree, this great championship heart and championship success they've had in the past. That championship success was 4+ years ago. Hasn't been any time recently. Let me throw some stats out there at you when it comes to the Tampa Bay Lightning. How about 1-10 in their last 11 home playoff games since 2022? How about 4-13 in their last 17 playoff games overall for this Lightning team and their goaltender, Andrei Vasilevsky, who everyone talks about as like he's a brick wall and unbeatable, impenetrable at this time of year. Not the case the last few years. So let's get our facts straight. If we're going to talk NHL content, let's not think that, Tampa Bay's this monster still 4 years later when they've been an absolute failure in the postseason, going back to 2022 in the Stanley Cup final against Colorado. So, but Montreal proved it yesterday. They're in this series, and they certainly have a chance to win it. Now, I'm not saying Tampa Bay can't come back and win it, but that was a statement by Montreal that they are, and the defensive issues. Now, Dastu got injured. Great point in the chat by Aaron. Big-time concerns for Tampa Bay after that game yesterday. We'll start with those two, but Alex, any thoughts on the afternoon games yesterday?
Tampa kind of reminds me of the end of the Hawks Showtime dynasty run, where there were just people who didn't want to believe that it's starting to come to an end. It's starting to unravel at some point. And like I said, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden they've fallen off. They're no longer going to be a playoff team after this year. That they're not going to win this series. They could still come back and win this because they have that talent, they have that pedigree. But right now, they are certainly at the downward spiral of what has been a very great decade for that franchise. And it's just like I said, it's not working out right now. They're playing better teams. They've had better competition beat them, and right now, so far in that first series, Montreal looked like the better team, and that's the kind of game that Tampa Bay normally wins in the playoffs. Like I said, a ref fest and a back and forth kind of battle. They usually find ways to get that win, especially at home. For Montreal to get a win like that against this Tampa Bay team, against a goalie like Vasilevsky, that's huge. To turn that home ice tide to their side. And we know we've been talking about how crazy of a crowd Game 3, Game 4 will be at Bell Center. Now to have that at your advantage, at your back, that's huge for the Habs.
No question about it. Absolutely. And the problem is Tampa's run amok on the power play in years past in the playoffs, and they've met a power play that's just as formidable, and they showed it yesterday. The Montreal Canadiens, no question. Now, I know, Rachel, you said before the show didn't get a chance to watch hardly any hockey. It was a special anniversary day for you. But is there anything you wanted to mention of things, maybe the stats you saw, things that you picked up from the first two games, the Colorado game, the Tampa game?
Yeah, I think we kind of saw the best out of Anton Forsberg in the LA game, and they still didn't win. Like, that felt like a game that they had to win, and they didn't. As it pertains to Montreal and Tampa, yes, Tampa historically wins those games. But one of the things, like when I was working for a team, one of the things that they had us look into was in a playoff game where there was a penalty box parade like there was last night. What does the rest of the series look like? And in every single series, the penalties dropped by more than 40%. My guess is we are done with the penalty box parade and probably for the rest of the series. I think that the league's going to look at that and go, that's a Tampa Bay win without those penalties. Like, we don't want our refs, and I'm not saying that this should be the way it is, but the way the NHL looks at it is we don't want our refs deciding the game. And in the NHL's opinion, most certainly today, it will be Montreal doesn't win that game without those power plays. And you know what? They're absolutely right, because that's like there's no disputing the statistics there. So I think we're going to see a much differently officiated game 2. It'll be interesting to see when we get to Montreal, but for those, I mean, listen, I'm always on the side of if it's a legitimate penalty, call it. But if it's ticky-tack stuff, we don't necessarily need that in the playoffs.
No, exactly. And I think it's true that we are going to have a crackdown on the number of penalties. It's a bad day for the refs in any series, in any game. When you've got Lightning fans and Habs fans all over my Twitter timeline yesterday, livid, pissed off, angry.
Yeah.
That's when you know you got a problem.
The only time I will say this is you don't want to swallow the whistles when it comes to like injury type plays. Like Radko Gudas is going to play tonight. If he decides he's going to stick his knee out, that needs to be 5 in a game, and you just have to that is acceptable. But when we're talking about like a hooking penalty, and if it doesn't affect possession, I don't really. If it doesn't affect possession / scoring chance, or it's not an injury type causing play, I don't love when it gets called in the playoffs.
Yeah, penalty I'm sick of seeing, and it's called constantly, and I don't think it's ever going to change because they see the broken evidence on the ice is that it could just be a little love tap of the stick by one player on another player's stick. The stick disintegrates and breaks, and there's the evidence on the right away, 2-minute penalty, right away.
Yeah.
Even if it's just the daintiest, if he's coming down two-handing and chopping that thing, okay. But just a little dainty little contact on the stick and it breaks, and we're still calling it. But it's not going to change because they're going to see the evidence, they're going to see the broken stick, and they're going to call that every time. So you got to just live with it, unfortunately. Just like the Boston Bruins have to live with an absolutely brutal loss last night in Game 1 against that. Now, that's a segue right there. The Boston Bruins, just an awful loss considering they had done what they wanted to do last night. They get a 1-0 lead early, take the crowd out of it, and that crowd was on a heater to start that game. When the Sabres hit the ice, you could hear it in the crowd. What a touch by the Sabres to decide we're going to bring the wife of the late, great Rick Jeanneret, Sandra, to bang the drum before the game. That was phenomenal. It's one of the best things I've seen a team do in a very long time. It got everyone all amped up. The building was just jumping. And then, of course, Boston, Morgan Geekie, what a career he's made of himself the last couple of years with the way he's played, gets them off to a 1-0 lead, takes a lot of energy out of the building. And then it was just a defensive clinic through the second period and halfway through the third by Boston. They add to the lead early in the third, 2-0. Buffalo's having a hard time generating quality looks. And don't be fooled by the shots on goal last night. I thought for a while, a lot of those shots were not the highest of quality. I thought it was a really, really structured, sound defensive effort from the Bruins. But then Tage Thompson just decides, I'm going to take over. And what a couple of plays he made, winning puck battles. That's another thing, too. As the Sabres got frustrated down 2-0, they started losing more puck battles. But then Tage Thompson's goal to make it 2-1, it's like it gave life to the team when they didn't have any. Ray Ferraro was great talking about it during the broadcast. The body language was bad, slumped shoulders, just, oh, here we go. It's just not our night. It's not going to happen for us. Frustration was setting in. And then bang, Tage Thompson, back-to-back goals. Great individual effort by him on those goals to tie it. The place is going nuts again. They feel they've got all the momentum on their side, and just the crowd's into it, the team's into it. Matthias Samuelsson makes it 3-2 with the point shot, which is a nice shot through traffic. I don't think Swayman picked it up all that much to take a 3-2 lead. Incredible turnaround. The noise in that building was incredible to listen to, at least if you were listening at the local broadcast in Buffalo. If you were listening on ESPN, you probably couldn't hear it very well. You got to stop dumbing down the crowd noise. This is ridiculous. And ESPN
I would rather hear the
year.
crowd noise than the commentators. Let's be so serious. I honestly, my ideal, now that like the legendary Bob Cole has passed away, like my ideal playoff game is 0 commentators, just mute, let me hear the crowd noise.
Yeah.
Like, just let me hear it. And I'm sure that if I look down and I hear oohing and awing, I'll look up and I'll be able to see what happened. Like, I don't need someone telling me, give us an option. Give me an alt cast of just crowd noise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Where you just get the crowd and you get nobody talking, no analysts, no play-by-play guys. Just let's hear the and ESPN's been known to do that for years, and I think it's gotten worse this year with how the crowd. No, you can barely hear it. I'm like, I know Dallas. It sounded a little. It's not that quiet there, and obviously Buffalo not that quiet for much of that game, and it's because ESPN's audio mixing, shrinks the volume of the crowd noise and ups the volume of their commentators.
It's going to be interesting when they get to, now that we've seen it happen in Buffalo, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they get to Montreal, because absolutely 0 people on this planet are buying that is a quiet building. Like, the camera's shaking, and why can I barely hear like what's going on?
And then when you hear the highlight, Rachel,
crap.
with the MSG Buffalo broadcast, you hear that highlight of the Matthias Samuelsson goal, for instance, and the place is going nuts, and you can hear it clearly.
Insane.
The place is insane.
You can't even hear the goal horn. And it is like one of the most obnoxious goal horns in the NHL.
Yeah, exactly.
Vegas is up there too. If you hear the Vegas one,
God.
they keep pumping that one for like 30 seconds for crying out loud after they score.
Wait till you see the Habs goal horn in the playoffs. That thing gets pressed until they like do their hug, go down the line, and are back at center ice. Like that's a 45-second goal horn.
Yeah, no doubt. What scenes, though? Incredible scenes, incredible dramatics in Buffalo last night. And the scenes, too, of the freaking outside the building where the party was happening, the watch party. And, you got people just, the friggin' gate was shaking. The security guards are trying to keep it in place. And then they're still high-fiving a lot of the fans while they're trying to keep the gates in place from falling over. Just absolute insanity there in Buffalo with that incredible comeback. And then just briefly on Utah-Vegas, look, learning lesson for the young Mammoth. They had a lead going into the third, a chance to close it out on the road, and the veteran Golden Knights picked it up, turned it up a notch or two, and Utah couldn't answer it. So credit to Vegas, down 2-1 going into the third. They end up winning 4-2 with those 3 unanswered goals, including 1 into the empty net, and we cashed the best bet with Utah-Vegas over the total. So credit to the Vegas Golden Knights. And I think if you're Utah, though, you've got to take some solace in the fact, first playoff experience for a lot of these young players, and you were right there in the game, a couple things break. And plus, Carter Hart was excellent again. The one bad break on the second goal where he just, he's got to get that puck. If you're going to come out to play the puck, you got to get the puck. He never did. And, of course, it goes in off his own defenseman, Caden Korzak. It was just an unfortunate turn of events, but he was very solid again. He's on a heater in net for the Golden Knights, as is the entire team, who are now, 8-0-1? I think now is the record under John Tortorella, and they come back and beat Utah 4-2 last night. But, Alex, your thoughts on the night action?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway from that game was how the pace and, that just kind of tempo was screaming first period over. We get lucky, did grab that half a goal late in that first period, got that goal from Logan Cooley. But I said on Twitter, I said, this is the second period over. waiting to be cashed. And we've been talking about this all season long, but I think it's 3-1 now. We've seen both teams to score in the second periods cash. We've seen these second period overs cash through. That was a nice one to cash and a quick one to cash in that Utah Vegas game. And that's something that I'll be looking at even more now with pregame. I cashed the pregame second period, both teams to score as well. That's something I have on the card tonight, and we'll be looking at moving forward in this first round.
Yeah, especially with the deluge of first period unders, no question about it. But Rachel, your thoughts, including that crazy Buffalo comeback?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like when Tage Thompson scored the first goal, I said to myself, I'm like, this is gonna get interesting. Like there's something happening here because you could feel that the crowd had woken up and was kind of almost willing the Sabres to more, and Tage Thompson was like, I'll pick that up, and there you go. And then I love the little nuance, and this is how you can tell that the fans in Buffalo are really, really smart. When Jack Quinn gets the puck and you see, like, as he goes to pass it across to Samuelson, you hear the crowd, like, kind of build. And then you hear them go quiet just as Samuelson shoots the puck. It's almost as if to, like, catch their breath. And then when that puck goes in the net, honestly, I hope they have extra bolts in that building because it looked like the building was going to come down. But just the little nuance of seeing, like, oh, the pass is going, this is going to be good, I'm excited, to, oh my goodness, what's happening? And then just absolute bedlam was incredible. And I just think that loss has to be really demoralizing for the Bruins. And yeah, they've got guys who have been there, like Pasternak and even Swayman and McAvoy, guys who are playoff veterans. And it won't necessarily shake them, but some of those younger kids, they haven't been through this before. And so I think that it might be a little bit tougher to come back from. And then you go to the Vegas-Utah game. I think Logan Cooley's in some trouble here. He's not very big to begin with. And when you anger the Vegas Golden Knights, who like to play physical on a bad day, if you get them on their best day, Logan Cooley is, like, don't get me wrong, he's difficult to hit, he's difficult to catch. But if one of them gets a hold of him, we could be looking at something super ugly because Vegas is out for blood constantly in the playoffs. Wouldn't be the first time that they've attacked a superstar and tried to injure them. And with Cooley's cheap shot, I didn't love it. And I think he sort of opened himself up to being a bigger target than he already was. And for somebody of his size, that was really not a good idea on his part. He needs to stick to being the Logan Cooley that is a star, that puts the puck in the net like he did in the first period, and not whatever that was, because you do not want to be angering guys that are Nick Dowd's size that can literally pick you up and
play
throw
within
you
yourself,
into the third
right?
row. Like, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Play within yourself, and when you get outside what you do best, that's when you run into trouble. I think there was a little bit of that in Logan Cooley. Don't be running around trying to hit everything in sight. That's not Logan Cooley.
Yeah, that's Lawson Krause's job.
Yeah, yeah, that's 100% true. We hear that all the time. And look, I credit him for wanting to make that effort physically, but you got to stick within yourself too. If there's a hit to be, you don't run around and find the hit. If you're in a puck battle and there's a hit to be made, make the hit. But you're running around and trying to cause a ruckus there is not what's going to help the Utah Mammoth. That's not going to be that's not what he gives them to help them win. What he gives them to help them win is what he can do offensively, and just focusing in on that. You want to play physical, but you don't want it to be at the detriment of your team. And that's certainly, Nick Dowd is a very tough hombre. He is a guy that plays physical. There's a reason why he was such a valued member of the Washington Capitals all those years when they made the playoffs. Like, he can do so many different, and he can score, on occasion as well. And I mentioned it.
Penalty kills so well. Like, that's a really ornery individual, and just don't poke the bear. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. And Nick Dowd, I said, be careful. He's one of these players. He's like, Joel Ward was like this back in the day too when he was a Capital. He wouldn't give you much offensively during the regular season. There he is scoring one, sometimes two or three big-time goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs for you. Kind of feels like that could be the case with Nick Dowd here in the playoffs, and we certainly saw him get on the board last night. All right, so it was up and down kind of day, but we did hit the best bet yesterday, so we'll take it when it's all said and done. Let's roll on to, and we did have our first draw, obviously, of the playoffs with that Montreal-Tampa game going to overtime. But on we go to Monday, and we will begin with Game 2 of the Keystone State rivalry battle, Philadelphia-Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh minus 150, home favorites. 6 the total here in this game. Flyers, of course, leading the series 1-0. Flyers played a Rembrandt for their standards Saturday night. They couldn't have done much better. They did everything that they were hoping to do. They cut off the neutral zone. They kept Pittsburgh's best players at bay. They held the shots on goal count low. They didn't give up a ton of great quality chances all night to the Penguins. They were faster, harder on pucks, winning battles all over the ice. The question is going to be, can they duplicate that here tonight in Game 2? Because you got to think on home ice with last change, the ability to make some tweaks for Dan Muse, there's going to be a bigger push for the Pittsburgh Penguins here tonight. But can Philadelphia maintain that level of play here in Game 2? That's going to be the big question. Dan Vladar was solid. I actually don't think Stuart Skinner was that bad Saturday night, actually. I thought he played solid for the most part. That was a great goal by Travis Sanheim to make it 2-1 in the third. It was a great shot by Porter Martone, and this kid's amazing. Like, first playoff game, especially on the road, could have fooled me that's going to phase him. Absolutely tremendous. No, we lost with the over on Saturday. And so, to me, I think Pittsburgh, if they get the lead, that's going to open the game up, and it's going over. It's really that simple. Philly gets the lead, and all of a sudden this game could be one of those, they're going to try to put the clamps down again. That's going to be their style of play here throughout this series. So I'm going to bet pregame over 6 a little bit. But this is going to be one where I'm going to really be looking live, depending on how this game starts. I am also going to dabble with Pittsburgh first goal, first period here. The Penguins must know after Saturday, we can't be giving up the first goal, because look what Philly did to us when they got the lead. They put us in a freaking anaconda chokehold in Game 1, and defensively didn't give us much, didn't give us any time and space. We need to force the Flyers into a position to open up the game. And that's when we're going to get our chances. That's when we're going to get more of a rush game going, and odd man rushes and opportunities, I think, with more open ice to work with. So I think the Penguins know, if Ian Cameron knows this, Dan Muse knows this, and the Pittsburgh Penguins know this, the getting on the board early is important. So in a not a backs against the wall, but you really don't want to go down 2-0 back to the madhouse that's going to be Philadelphia for Game 3 and Game 4, and a fan base that's going to be welcoming their team back into the playoffs for the first time in several years. This is a very important game for Pittsburgh. I don't know if I trust them to win. I'm certainly not laying $1.50 with Pittsburgh. That's for sure. But I will take them first goal, first period, and I will take a small over 6 pregame. And if Pittsburgh scores that first goal, as I think they might, we're probably going to bet a live over, because I think the game's going to open up at that point, because Philly can't just stay back. They've got to push. They've got to attack if they're trailing. So that's kind of my game flow thought process from a betting standpoint here in this game. Alex, what do you think? Flyers, Penguins, Game 2.
Yeah. Rachel was saying it earlier about how you don't poke the bear. Well, I think Philly has poked the bear in number 87, Sidney Crosby. Like I said, he had a terrible Game 1. He's going to wake up and do some damage. I'll be talking about him a little bit later in the bargain bin section. But the play that I like the most as far as within the game is second period. Both teams to score. It's plus 136. You're probably going to get maybe a plus 140, 145 live if you jump in. So it's something that's more of a placeholder, but I'll be looking to grab some of that extra, maybe second period over as well, of course, as that drops down within the game. But I think this could be a game where we still see more of a feeling out early, and it wouldn't shock me if maybe this ends 1-0 instead of 1-1 or 2-0 first period, and then we see things really kind of explode in that second frame once they make changes here. So that's the 2 spots I have. I have a play involving Sidney Crosby later, and second period both teams score at plus 136.
So keep in mind regarding the fact that all 7 playoff games so far have gone under in the first period. I also want to point out a couple facts about how a lot of these games have opened up after those slow starts. We have seen in games that ended 1-0 after the first period, we have seen both teams to score in the second period 3-1 so far in the playoffs for those 1-0 games. And of course, we've talked about the system for a very long time on this show, where it's a scoreless first period how we like the second period over 1.5 and or both teams to score. So that system has continued to be pretty strong. And of course, I've noticed the 3-1 for second period, both teams to score when it's been 1-0. And my theory with that, we'll see if Rachel agrees here with this, when it's 3-1, both teams to score, second period after a 1-0 first, the team that's trailing obviously has to open up, but and try to push for more offense when it's 1-0 after the first. But that's going to give the team that's leading 1-0, even though they're trying to think defense, an opportunity on odd man rushes, rush chances. And if you're going to be more aggressive when trailing 1-0, you are going to open the door for the team up 1-0 to have their quality looks, their quality chances as well. So that's probably the theory behind why both teams to score in the second period could be profitable here in these playoffs when it's 1-0 after the first period. It's 3-1 so far. Maybe it's going to go the other way, but so far so good. Keep an eye on it. Rachel, what do you think here? Game 2 with Flyers Penguins.
I agree that you're probably looking at Pittsburgh to score first. One of our top value play at Betalytics on the game board is Philadelphia Pittsburgh over 6. So I think if you look at the analysis of it, if you take Pittsburgh and the over, those two go together. I would probably not take Philly on the money line, and I would say if they score the first goal, I am hitting that under immediately, because at that point, Philly will be at a negative price, and you don't want to be paying the book. But the under at that point, like the chokehold, like you said, is going to go on. Whereas I think if Pittsburgh scores, and Alex brought up Sidney Crosby, we're going to get to him in a second. But if Pittsburgh scores and kind of turns this into a game that requires offense, there's only like one guy has been the catalyst for Philadelphia of late, and it's Porter Martone. And his point is plus 110 right now. If Philadelphia is going to score 2 or more goals, Porter Martone, the odds of him not having a point there, like, not very high. He has a point in, I believe, like his last 5 for sure. But I think it's like 8 of 10 or 7 of 10, something like that. He's been absolutely incredible. So plus 110 to me has some incredible value there. Then I'm gonna look at Sidney Crosby goal, and that's plus 170, which for Sidney Crosby to have, like you said, the bear was kind of poked. He's got 12 goals in his last 21 games against the Philadelphia Flyers. He has 8 scoring chances in his last 10 games and only 2 goals. And historically speaking, on 8 scoring chances, Sidney Crosby scores about 50% of his shots from the high danger scoring area. So he is due for some positive regression there. And yeah, did they sort of put the chokehold on him? A little bit. We're also talking about Sidney Crosby here. I don't care who you think you are, you're not putting the chokehold on him for an entire series. And I think at home, he understands the gravity of tonight's game. And when you look at it, I mean, plus 170 for a guy who is known to have the clutch gene, who is known to score big goals at big times, known to show up in the big games, that price feels a little bit too high for me. So I'm going to look at his scoring chances. I'm going to look at his track record against Philadelphia and look at his track record in big games. All those 3 things, that is a formula where I go, that number could probably be 125 before I go, that's maybe probably even money value at that point.
Yeah, the Porter Martone props. It's not a shocker that I'm going to go back to the well with them. I mean, we've actually seen him score now 4 of the last 5 games, 5 of the last 10, 2 straight games he scored. He's actually scored in obviously he's only played Pittsburgh once, but there you go. He scored in, obviously, game 1. It was the huge goal. It turned out to be the game-winning goal, so it's hard to argue with that. It's going to be interesting to see, as far as line changes are concerned, if there will be any here for this game tonight. By the way, because Shelov's played so much this year, there was probably some people thinking because they lost, would there be a different goalie? No. Still Stuart Skinner. I think you give Stuart Skinner at least a couple of games at the very least before you make a change.
It's not like
the guy that's still gone
poorly.
to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not like Stuart Skinner is the reason they lost.
No.
It would be one thing if he let in a beach ball from center ice, which, I mean, has happened before.
Correct.
But there's no reason that they should be going to RDC Loves. And once again, it would be one thing if Stuart Skinner had a 50 save performance. I don't even think he did not have half of that. So I think he'll be fine. I think he can more than manage. And if he doesn't play well, and it costs you the game, yeah, maybe you go to Seelovs. But in this particular case, like that's not what was going on. And Stuart Skinner is absolutely the more playoff tested goalie here.
Yeah. Unless this game goes, let's say, double overtime and you lose, then I don't think there should be any rocking of the apple cart right now in goal.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's we're all in agreement with this that Skinner's in there for a reason again. And remember, this is a guy that did get to the Stanley Cup final. I just want to throw out a couple. Mantha was third in the team in expected goals in Game 1, so I'm going back to the well with Mantha. He's not going to be a bargain bin like he was for me in Game 1, but I think he's still someone up. I can't argue with Crosby. I mean, Crosby is you're only going to get in the plus 150 or so. For him to score a goal.
170 right now.
Oh, that's better for Crosby than
I know. That's why I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. And not for nothing, Leon Draisaitl's goal prop is 155 this morning. I was like, pardon?
Yeah, and that's another team he has. We'll get to that. That's another team he has a lot of success against, I believe, too, the Anaheim Ducks. Like, that's almost not quite Nashville, and we know what he's done against
It's Nashville very close, though.
But it's up there. Elmer Soderblom, too. He had some chances the other night. You're getting plus 750. Like, he was second behind Rust, for this team as far as expected goals. On the Philly side, I mentioned Martone. Give me Tyson Forster, too. He had a bunch of good looks for the Philadelphia Flyers. This guy's been a good goal scorer this year. I know he's cooled off a little bit, but he's still up there with Zegras and Tippett, and he certainly had his chances the other night. So those are definitely some of the props that I'm interested in here. Most of all, there will be others. Check the Patreon page later, but those are the main ones as far as props for Philly and Pittsburgh. All right, Ottawa, Carolina, Game 2 down in Raleigh. Carolina leading the series 1-0. We've got Carolina minus 150 home favorites, 5.5 the total here in this game. You look at Carolina, when you really peel back the layers of that 2-0 win, I thought Ottawa did a lot of good things, just not opportunistic enough. And when you look at Carolina's PK, it was very good again. Ottawa had their chances. Frederik Andersen was terrific. Give him some credit for a guy that's had a really dismal season early. I think he did play better in the second half, but still not a great season by his standards. But he elevated in Game 1 and played well. They made it a little easier on him, Carolina, because of kept the shots on goal low, kept the chances against, not a ton of grade A's for Ottawa. And certainly for those that read into the expected goals and they see what Carolina did control the flow pretty good in that game. But I still think Ottawa did a lot of good things. They didn't let the Carolina get off and running very easily. So, I think the key for the concern I have for Ottawa here is the defensive situation. Obviously, we're talking about still without Tyler Kleven and Artem Zub's one of their shot suppressors, shot blockers, physical defensemen. And they're going to miss him now, even though they have Shabbat and Sanderson back. They are going to miss, obviously, Artem Zub, who is a game-time decision for tonight. Hasn't been ruled out by Travis Green, but certainly they'd want him in there because he's a playoff-type defenseman. He helps you at this time of year, blocks a ton of shots, plays on the penalty kill. You would miss him dearly if he doesn't play. Dennis Gilbert, Lassie Thompson, that's probably what you're looking at as the bottom pair.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's what you're looking at as the bottom pair if Artem Zub doesn't go. And like I mentioned, Tyler Kleven's not ready to go just yet. So bottom line is, in a game where they're down 1-0, Sanderson, Modin, Paulo, Shabbat, and Spence, that quartet, they're going to see a lot of ice time tonight. There's no question for the Ottawa Senators. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm leaning Ottawa plus 130 here. I am. I just want to see if Zub's in. What I do like, even because I think Ottawa's going to push back hard. I loved the scenes earlier today at practice for Ottawa. Travis Green saying, let's go out and fucking get it. Something along those lines is what he said. Like, bring it tonight. And I thought, other than a tough bounce, off a stick, through the wickets of Linus Ullmark for the Stankoven goal, and then the Taylor Hall goal, it hits the shoulder of Ullmark, bounces behind him. Taylor Hall gets the last puck touch and puts it in to that open net behind Ullmark. Those were the two goals. A bit of a tough break and a bounce off a shoulder. That's the difference between Carolina winning and maybe Ottawa having a chance to create a different outcome in Game 1. So I think you're going to see a better effort from Ottawa. I'm tempted to dabble in that plus 130, but I do like Ottawa first goal in this game. I'm going to split this up. It's not going to be all first goal, first period, because I could see another very cagey, low-scoring start, but Ottawa first goal on its own, and then Ottawa first goal, first period. We'll split the bet up between those two here in this one. And I'm going to take a shot with the draw. This is going to be my first draw shot here of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We finally saw our first overtime game with Montreal, Tampa Bay, the only game to go to overtime in the game ones over the weekend. But now as the games, accumulate, things get more intense, the urgency rises. That's when you get to see even more of a competitive nature in these series as far as games that have a better chance to go to overtime. So this will be my first draw season look of the playoffs tonight. Alex, game 2, Ottawa, Kakalaki.
I'm glad we're in agreement on that because this is where my first draw as well. This is dog and draw for me. I grabbed Ottawa. I got plus 126 earlier this morning. With the draw, I got plus 320. There's still a 319 floating around over at Bet Online. I also, of course, did the FanDuel Ottawa to win in over. This is overtime shootout, but obviously overtime plus 600 with that. And Brady Tkachuk to score the game winner in overtime, 75-1 available at FanDuel with that as well. I think this is going to be kind of that same tight, cagey game, but I think it's going to take a while to figure out a winner here. And like I said, I liked Ottawa's pushback. Like I said, the energy that Travis Green kind of showed at practice as well. I think this is, it's a now or never spot for Ottawa. You go down 2-0, even going back home, it still feels like, that could be the beginning of the end. So I think we're going to see a grade A effort here from Ottawa, but it's going to take longer than 60 for them to get it done.
It's because Carolina is very capable of going to Ottawa and splitting. That's why this is still a pretty important game for the Senators. I know they're going to have home ice in game 3 and game 4, but I don't think it's impossible for Carolina to walk out of Ottawa with a split. That is for sure. Oh, you know what? I'm just looking at it now. This will be a bet pregame too. I was just first time looking at it to see if the price was cheap enough. Minus 136 at FanDuel for Ottawa first period goal. I'll put a little something on that.
That's got some good value on it.
Yeah, definitely. Rachel, how do you see this one with Sens Canes?
Yeah, I think when you look at the Canes, the one thing we're absolutely assured of is shot volume. The Canes' pace of play is absurd. They're the top pace of play team through the regular season in the National Hockey League by our numbers at Betalytics, and it's a fairly wide margin. And when we look at game 1, Ottawa wasn't able to suppress Carolina the way that they had been suppressing teams sort of throughout the regular season. And I think part of that is Rod Brindamore's team. They really turn the dial up on the intensity in the playoffs, and they stick to their game. They have a very defined game, and they play it. And so I look at this, and I go, if Ottawa's going to win tonight, and I think they have a chance to, Linus Ullmark over 25.5 saves. Do not bet this on FanDuel because they have the 60-minute save nonsense happening there. Go bet it on any other sportsbook, please. Don't bet shots or saves on FanDuel. Just do not do it. But Ullmark 25.5 saves. I also have a sprinkle on 30 saves at plus 190 because I too think this is going to go to overtime, and there is no way Ottawa is pulling this out in an overtime scenario if Linus Ullmark isn't making 30 saves, because if Ottawa goes up, we know that Carolina cranks up the shots, and they get in games where they trail by a goal for longer than 22 minutes, I believe is a period plus a little bit. They outshoot teams by 19%. So you look at that and you're like, all right, that you could do whatever you want. Then you add Artem Zub potentially missing. That is a huge shot blocking guy for them. So I look at this and I go, okay, you kind of have to take Ullmark there. And speaking of the shot volume, 2 guys for Ottawa that have been shot blocking machines outside of Zub that are going to have to be even better tonight because they're both going to be getting extra penalty kill time. That's Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot.
Yep.
Thomas Chabot, 3+ blocks is plus 105. Jake Sanderson's 3+ blocks is plus 140 right now. Those are 2 guys that are going to be getting premier penalty killing minutes, premier matchup minutes. And even if Dennis Gilbert is playing over Artem Zub, when push comes to shove, specifically in the third period, especially if they're protecting a lead or in a tie game, Sanderson and Chabot are going to be the guys that are on the ice. And so you look at the game narrative for this sets up perfectly for Sanderson and Chabot to have the block shots parade, as well as for Ullmark to have the saves. The other thing I look at is I went back through Seth Jarvis's game logs. it is extraordinarily rare, like less than 5% of his games, where he follows a game of 0 shots on goal with a game of less than 3. So I'm on Seth Jarvis. His 3+ shots tonight are plus money. I absolutely love that play. I think he is going to be a guy that's looking to get the puck to the net. He saw how, like, if you look at how Svechnikov played, and I think it was like 8 shots on goal. That's the stuff that's generating for Carolina. You look at a guy like Seth Jarvis, that line has to be really good for Carolina. And I think Seth Jarvis is going to be a catalyst tonight in the same way that a lot of people think Stützle and Tkachuk are going to be catalysts. I think that guy for Carolina is going to be Seth Jarvis tonight.
I like that parlay idea of Addison. Even I'm going to get in on that. The parlay of just Sanderson and Chabot to have 2 blocks each. So both of them over 1.5 block shots, minus 110.
Oh, I like that smash. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that. You can't do that on FanDuel. You can do it on 365. But yeah.
I mean, let's think about this logically with Sanderson and Chabot when it comes to block shots. We know Carolina is a shot volume machine, especially at home. We know Ottawa's got injuries on the blue line. We know that Sanderson and Chabot played 27 and 26 minutes respectively in game 1. Guess what, guys? That ain't fucking changing. Okay, that's not stopping anytime soon. Right. If anything, it could go up. You know, I mean, they played nearly half the game against Carolina in game 1, so they're going to get the ice time. They're going to be in all the key situations. They're facing a team that's going to throw a lot of rubber and shot attempts at the net in Carolina. I mean, it's the perfect recipe to accumulate and rack up, block shots.
And then you're talking about, like I said, obviously shopping around because some books will limit this to 60 minutes. But the fact that we all like this game to go past 60, if you don't have that limitation in your book, then that you talk about more ice time, more desperation to block shots.
That means you start laddering it. We're thinking about Flyers on laddering some of these.
Yeah, possibly.
5. You could get at one point. I got like an email from a sportsbook because I laddered a shot block parlay for Tyler Myers like in the last 2 games of the regular season, and he had like 6, and they immediately were like, what is this? So take them on 365 because the lines they haven't really figured them out on 365 at least. Take them there. You can get I'm willing to guess that Jake Sanderson 5+ blocks is probably close to 700.
Like I said, if you think it's going to go to overtime, and Alex and I both think that's possible, you're going to have those opportunities to see them, and the same thing with shots on goal. The one thing you'll notice too is that especially Jake Sanderson has gone over 1.5 shots on goal 9 straight games. For the Ottawa Senators. Now it's minus 165. It's a big number. Stankoven's gone over 1.5 shots on goal for Carolina in 6 straight games, minus 185. It's a big number, but still, it's pretty clear that these 2 players have been shooting the puck, ripping a lot of rubber lately at the net. That's got a chance maybe to continue tonight. And by the way, I mean, I already like Logan Stankoven, over goals in the series. We thought maybe we cashed that in game 1. His over 1.5 goals for the series, but they gave the second goal to Hall. But he was all over the place, making things happen. He nearly had 2 goals. He's gotten a point in 9 straight games for the Hurricanes. He scored in 3 of the last 5. So Logan Stankoven, again, keep on going to the well with what he's been able to do for Carolina as far as his props. Also, a couple more that I'll mention as well as far as this game goes. Ehlers, I still think, a playoff performer a year ago. Very good for Winnipeg offensively in the playoffs last year. I think he's worth a look. I think for Ottawa, too, we saw, obviously, Batherson. Batherson's got success. I know Jonathan Davis put the stat in the other day that Drake Batherson's had a lot of success scoring on Freddie Anderson. So if you buy into that, you could look at Drake Batherson here for the Senators. I'm going to go back to the well probably with Dylan Cousins one more time, as well as Shane Pinto. As far as goal props here for Ottawa tonight. This should be a good game. Looking forward to it. I think you're going to get a big pushback from Ottawa. We'll see if it's enough to win, but I do think we're going to see a big pushback from them. Just like we need to see a big pushback from the Dallas Stars, who were absolutely pathetic, pitiful, dreadful on Saturday. They are looking to bounce back against the Minnesota Wild. Dallas minus 135 home favorites, 5.5 the total here in this one. I'll go Dallas first goal. first period here. That's it, though. I'm not laying $1.35 with Dallas. I got concerns. I don't think it's a automatic that they win and tie up the series for a couple of reasons. Well, number one is this is the best Minnesota team they've played, in the years that they've met in the playoffs. In all the years Minnesota's failed to get out of the playoffs get out of the first round since 2015, this is their best roster. I don't think there's much denial about that. So if they're ever going to do it, it's this year. And I just saw a team that won every puck battle, every foot race. We talked about this in the recap. Every one-on-one puck battle, when there was a puck to be won, Minnesota was winning that battle every time on Saturday against Dallas. It was that noticeable. Their power play was strong, and their power play was good down the stretch. And like I said, they just looked like a faster team that was just a little bit more urgency. I think Minnesota, too, was sick and tired of hearing about the 11 years of playoff utility in the first round. And they had that mindset of, we want to change things this year, where Dallas just dipped their toe into the series. Minnesota jumped in full force into the series, and that was clear as frickin' day right from the opening puck drop on Saturday in game one. So there's issues with Dallas. They got to make some adjustments. And look, I'm going to bring it up again about Glenn Gulletson. I thought he did a heck of a coaching job this year, considering all the injuries Dallas had to deal with. And, of course, they're still without Roope Hintz. And from what I hear, Roope Hintz is not back till game 3 minimum. And even then, that's absolute best-case scenario. But Glenn Gulletson's now 0-5 as an NHL head coach in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's still waiting for his first playoff win as a head coach. He made the playoffs just that one time with Calgary. Didn't make it with Dallas the first time he was head coach there. Only made it once in, 2-3 years with Calgary. And in that 1 year they made the playoffs with Calgary, they got swept in the first round by Anaheim. So 0-4 in that series, loses game 1 on Saturday, and that makes him 0-5 in the Stanley Cup playoffs as a head coach. So he's got to show he can get it done. It's not just the team that's got to bounce back. Hey, coach, how are you going to have your team ready? What adjustments to the lineups are you going to make? How are you going to put the team in position, to make them better and put them in a position to succeed and tie up this series tonight? So it's everybody. Everybody's got to be better. Wyatt Johnston, terrible game. And I love Wyatt. We all do. Been singing his praises for 2 years. He was not good in game 1. Not at all. Not even a little bit in that one. Mikko Rantanen, you couldn't find him with a telescope until he freaking irritated Jesper Wallstedt enough that Jesper Wallstedt kind of went after him. That's the only time I saw Rantanen in that game. That's it. So he's got to be a hell of a lot better, especially for the big bucks he's getting. So it's everybody collectively. And this sits on Jamie Benn, too. You're the captain. What do you say to the team to get them in a position to answer in a positive way and a response for what happened on Saturday? Because that was an utter abomination from the Dallas Stars on Saturday. So I'll take them to first goal, first period, but that's it. I'll come back to over 5.5 here tonight, too. I'm a sucker for 5.5 in this series when it comes to it, because I think you're going to get Dallas a little frenetic early. So I will go with the over here at 5.5 pregame. No first period overs for now. We're putting that into the freaking shelf for now when it comes to until we see a change in the trends here. Now, maybe it's not going to carry over into game 2s because these are game 2s now. The 7-0 first period under run is game 1 so far to this point. This is a game 2. We'll see if, it continues. But I got to admit, I'm a little cautious of first period overs for now until I see things change. Alex, you may not be. It's from the looks of the way you were not there. What do you think, Minnesota, Dallas?
I do like this first period over. I think it's because Dallas has to open the series up. They have to get things rolling. They have to treat this for them like a reset to a game 1. And I like them first goal, first period as well. You get that plus 125, but I think a minus $1.10. It's cheap enough to at least play it small and wait for a couple of minutes for it to go crossing the plus money territory live and then hammer that. But I think for Dallas, if they're going to come out and win this game, they got to have at least 2 goals in this first period. So you could maybe look at even a Stars alternate team total. I wouldn't talk anybody out of that either. But this is rarefied air for Minnesota. They've never had a 2-0 series lead in any series that they've ever had in their playoffs, 25 years of existence. Never had a 2-0 series lead. And you have a Dallas team that we know they have to be resilient. Like I said, everybody's got to step it up. Even that crowd, if Minnesota takes a 1-0 lead, that crowd cannot turn into a fucking funeral like it did in the first period of game 1. It absolutely cannot happen. Everybody's got to be on point tonight. Everybody in green and black has to be on their A game. Like I said, you mentioned Jamie Benn, the captain. Somebody I'll talk about a little bit later. I think he's got to step up and deliver in this spot. It's funny. I was shifting around my screens, and I went on Twitter, and I see a superimposed Blackhawks uniform on Jason Robertson because they keep talking about this blockbuster trade again. He's a guy who's got to step up for the team that he's currently playing for right now as well, and get some goal scoring. This is a big spot for Dallas, but like I said, can't trust them. Team total, even though we know they usually get to 4 when they come back and win off of a loss. The only way I can go with them is to get the first goal of the first period, and I will have, like I said, a piece of that first period over.
I agree with that. It's going to be very, very important. And by the way, John Hines hasn't won a first-round series. That is accurate. Someone in our chat wanted to, but here's the difference. He's won some first-round games. He's won some first-round games before, plenty of them. He just hasn't won a series yet. I can't say that about Glenn Gulletson. Like, give me one playoff win, one first-round win for Glenny. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. So, yeah, you could say they're somewhat similar, but at least with John Hines, he's won some first-round games. Can't say that yet about Glenn Gulletson. So there's pressure on him too tonight. Rachel is going to have to bounce in the next few minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to get to Rachel with this game as well as Anaheim-Edmonton, her thoughts on that, and then we'll get her best bet at the end. And we'll definitely see her again. She's going to plan to join us as often as she can on Mondays moving forward here on the show. So that'll be great to have her on as often as we can. But Rachel, what do you think here for Game 2, Minnesota-Dallas?
Yeah, so there's a couple angles that I'm looking at here. I love the over 5.5. At Betalytics, we have it projected for 6 goals, but we have it as a tight game. So I like the draw here. I think we could get a scenario where we get some early scoring from Dallas, and then Minnesota crawls their way back in, and we get an overtime here. So I'm going to take the over 5.5 because I could very easily see a 3-3 game going into overtime. But I could also see a scenario where it's 3-2 late and there's an empty netter and we get the over 5.5 here. And so I think the frenetic pace that Dallas is going to come out with, because they know they cannot afford to go into Minnesota down 2-0, is something that is worth looking at here. So I'm all on that. I also have a shots parlay that has no business being even money, but it is. Jason Robertson and Matt Goldie, 3+ shots each, is paying even money right now at Bet365, and that includes overtime. And I'm looking at those guys, and not only are those guys high-end shooters, Jason Robertson's record against the Minnesota Wild is sterling. I would take him to score a goal tonight. I think he's going to be part of it. But when you look at the chances that both him and Goldie are generating, they are generating more scoring chances than this line would indicate. So for me, this is a little bit of a depressed line that's probably mispriced from a parlay perspective, at least. And I mean, this obviously is implied odds of 50%. At Betalytics, when I add the two together, like, we're talking about implied odds of more than 62%. That's almost 13 points of value there. I cannot ignore that when that's even money. I am going to take Jason Robertson to score a goal. I'm also going to take Matt Zuccarello to have an assist. This guy is primary assist machine, and primary assists are the biggest predictors of just regular assists, because if you're getting primaries, it means you're getting secondaries. So those are the bets that I have for that. I'm going to stay away from block shots. Just on some intel, there's some inconsistencies with the blocks in Dallas. And so I'm going to stay away from the block shots, and I'll probably go back to them in Minnesota, where they are much more consistent.
The strongest one that's coming up on my screen is Jonas Brodin for Minnesota. Has gone over 1.5 block shots in 4 straight games, including in game 1. And that was where Dallas, and Dallas is probably, you got to think, the shot volume is going to go up tonight because the urgency level is going to ramp up. Being down 1-0. So maybe Brodin is someone definitely to target for shot blocks for Minnesota here tonight. All right, Anaheim-Edmonton. We'll get Rachel's thoughts on this series. It gets underway tonight, game 1. Edmonton minus 180, home favorite, 6.5 the total. If any series is going to disrupt and end the undefeated streak of first period unders at 7-0 in game 1s, it's going to be this one, but I still don't have the guts to bet it. But what do you think here, Rachel? Game 1, Anaheim-Edmonton.
I don't think there's a soul that doesn't think this is going to be the most offensively filled series. This series has like 8-goal games written all over it, and then some, maybe. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, 6.5 feels a little low. I don't know if I'm going to take it per se, but I could see myself going over 5.5 and parlaying it with something. So what I'm going to do is I want to see the first period. I want to see whether there's going to be any level of commitment to defense. I'm not sure Anaheim's even capable of it. I know Edmonton is. So I want to see sort of how they play. So I've got 3 bets that I really like for this. Jacob Trouba 2+ block shots. This guy is going to be playing against either of Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, and this is on the assumption that Draisaitl plays. And considering like 2 years ago he played with duct tape and pipe cleaner around his ankle, he's probably going to be playing. So I will take Jacob Trouba 2+ block shots because that Edmonton power play shoots from everywhere. They're firing on all cylinders, and Jacob Trouba is going to have to be in the firing line. I think he is a ladder candidate for that. Matty Savoy is playing on Connor McDavid's left wing. And this guy, I think he is a candidate for most shots in the game, him and Cutter Gauthier. I think he is a candidate for a shots ladder. I think he's a candidate for 2+ points. There are so many ways you can attack Matthew Savoy, but this is my best bet. Matthew Savoy over 1.5 shots. This guy's shot attempts are consistent across the board. He's playing with guys who can get him the puck. He's getting opportunities, and Anaheim's going to be focused on Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman. They're not going to be focused on Matt Savoy, who has the speed and the water bug kind of style of play. So Matty Savoy, he's one of our MVP props at Betalytics, which kind of has its own page. So if you go to our site, you click MVP props, it accounts for the value on the line, the head-to-head play, their last 5 games performance, and it gives it a Z score according to that. And so that's one of the most valuable plays on the site today. Got to take that. And then we touched on it earlier. Leon Draisaitl's goal prop is now down to 150. That's still way too high for a guy who has 14 goals and 14 of 20 against the Anaheim Ducks. So I'm not quite sure why that line's sitting at 150, but I will be taking it so long as that line stays above 120 throughout the playoffs. So those are my bets in that game. And if Draisaitl's confirmed, like the chat's saying, yeah, that I'm leaning towards that over now.
There you go. Great stuff. And by the way, when it comes to props, she nailed it with the MVP props on Betalytics. That what do you look for first and foremost? Position in the lineup, head-to-head history, because sometimes that does matter. Yeah. Sometimes you just have a better matchup against a particular team, and current form. Last 5 games. It's a great formula for being able to find good player props and ones that have positive expectations as far as success goes. All right, Rachel. Awesome stuff as always. Like I said, you've been a great guest the first couple times on the show. Let's wrap it up with you because I know you got to run with best bet here for this Monday night Stanley Cup playoff slate. Rachel, where are you headed for best bet?
I'm going to Matthew Savoy over 1.5 shots. I don't like the juice, but quite frankly, I like guys that consistently hit their lines, and this guy consistently hits his line. So I'm going to take it. I'll pay the juice man, and I'll go from there because Matty Savoy, in a game that we assume is going to have a ton of offense, is playing on the top line with the best player on the planet.
There we go. Yeah, no bargain bin for Rachel today. She told me before the show didn't have one today. Nothing strong enough for a bargain bin, and that's cool. Optional when it comes to the bargain bin special for not for the hosts but for the guests. It is optional. No,
as a matter of principle, I don't really bet goals in the playoffs unless I see something that's mispriced. Where you find the bargain bins for me is my blocked shots betting account. It pretty much my entire betting account goes to block shots because I'll find things that are like plus 500 that have hit in 3 straight games and books just aren't paying attention. So I might come with a bargain bin special next week that is straight up a block shots parlay.
Yeah, there we go. And I should point it out because I think that's Rachel controlling the Betalytics, obviously YouTube in the chat right there. There you go. Come try the most valuable prop tool free for 5 days. Check it out. Great stuff, great resource, Betalytics that Rachel works with. So make sure you check that out. Rachel, good luck tonight. Enjoy the games. Looking forward to the Monday night slate, and we'll see you again next Monday.
That's so I will see you next Monday. That's one of my co-founders, Eugene, in chat. He's great. If you guys have any questions about the site, he'll be happy to answer you guys for the rest of the show. So highly recommend just ask any questions you have.
There you go. Okay. Cool. Eugene,
awesome.
Running Betalytics YouTube account there, commenting in the YouTube chat. All right, Rachel, thanks. Awesome stuff. See you next week.
Cheers.
See ya.
There we go. Great stuff from Rachel. All right, Minnesota,
Yeah.
Dallas. I gave my thoughts. Alex, you gave your thoughts. So props wise,
Yeah.
I didn't mention a few props that I'm interested in there. In that, I'm going to ride the wave with Hartman, man, for Minnesota. I mean, he's right now he's got it going. He was great, goal and an assist in game one, playing with Zuccarello and Kaprizov. Going to go back to that well as far as him for goal prop in this one tonight for the Minnesota Wild. For Dallas, I'm going to. It looks like, based on the combinations here, that Justin Ritzkovian putting on the Ritz. There's some real value. Looks like he might be with Wyatt Johnston and Mikko Rantanen tonight. They've moved him to the top line. Sam Steele, who was on that unit, down to the third line with Arttu Huru and Jamie Benn. So a little bit of a shake-up there. I'm going to go back to Maverick Bourque, too, on the second line for the Stars, still with Duchesne and Jason Robertson for this game. So the main props, too, the value with Ritzkovian for Dallas is very good. Bourque on the second line. Those are going to be the main props of interest. These are always the games, too, and I know Matt and Ryan Robinson, who are the big Dallas Stars fans, have been mentioning this. It seems like when they need an answered game, a statement game, that's sometimes when you get the best out of Jamie Benn. So could this be a little dabble in Jamie Benn night, off a dismal, horrific game for the entire – I'm not saying specifically him, but for the entire team in game one. Maybe that could be something to look at here as well. All right, we'll roll back to Anaheim and Edmonton here. As I mentioned, with Edmonton minus 180, home favorite, 6.5 the total. This is game one. This is the only series that has not started yet in the first round. Looks like Leon Draisaitl will be back here for the Edmonton Oilers for game one. They were hoping he'd be back. It looks like he's going to be in for the Oilers. Now, I'm not so sure about the trooper, as we always call him, Jason Dickinson. Game time decision is the latest on him as far as his return. And look, I think you probably should be able. Now, again, you never know. Anything can happen, but should be able to get past Anaheim with or without the services of Jason Dickinson. But when you get later on, and what if you have to see a Vegas or a Colorado down the road, and you need that shutdown presence on that third line, that's when you'd really want to have a Jason Dickinson available to you. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly he's able to come back. He hasn't been ruled out yet for tonight, though. He is still a game-time decision. I think and we talked about this a little bit, Alex, with the playoff preview show. I think if this series was 2 months ago, I'm way more high on Anaheim pulling an upset here. Way more high on it. Didn't love the trends of the defense down the stretch. I got to admit, our guy Lukas Dostal was not on his A game down the stretch. Husso was worse. The defensive play, it seemed like every time they gave up just one great chance, it was in the net. That was happening way too much for Anaheim down the stretch. Their penalty kill just absolutely dropped significantly down the stretch, struggling. And by the way, if your penalty kill is struggling, you don't want to be dealing with Edmonton's power play.
That's right.
It can be lethal. Yeah. And with Leon Draisaitl back now, that's really going to put the onus on Anaheim to either get freaking better killing penalties or stay out of the damn box. That is going to have to be the mantra here for Coach Q against Edmonton in this series. Either stay out of the box, maintain your discipline, maintain your composure, or somehow, some way, you're going to have to get better on the penalty kill, or else this is going to be an even tougher series for the Anaheim Ducks here in this one. Normally, if this had not been a first round game one situation where we're a perfect 7-0 to the first period under so far, I'd probably be on the first period over here. But I'm only going to go to the full game over here, 6.5. I respect the 7-0 first period under in the game one so far run that we've seen. And if anyone likes the first period under in this game, I don't fault you for it. Ride the streak. It's perfect. 7-0. Game ones here in this first round have gone under. So for that reason, I still think we're going to see plenty of goals in this series. I will only do the 6.5, the full game over here between the Anaheim Ducks and the Edmonton Oilers. I might look at one of these goal in the first 10 minutes for Edmonton as well tonight. I could see them getting an early goal. That's something that they have done before. Now, here's the one thing I will say about Edmonton, and this is, by the way, Ryan Sura. He's been on the show before. He's going to be with us Thursday on the show, which will be great. He was good the last time he was on. He's in our Ice Guys group chat as well. He put this out on Twitter. We talk about Dallas, how rough they've been in game one. How about Edmonton? They're actually now on a 1-7 slide in round one, game one, in their last 8 games. That is something to keep in mind. Edmonton has not been a team that's known to come out fast and strong out of the gate in game ones in the first round. 1-7 slide for the Oilers in the last 8 round one game ones. So, but I don't know if I trust Anaheim enough. I just don't. I hate the matchup. I hate the way they were playing, especially defensively down the stretch. It's probably a spot Edmonton can win game one. We'll see. If I see Anaheim, playing strong early and, playing even with Edmonton early in the game, giving them confidence, and I see that, though Stahl looks like he's on his game, then I might get interested in Anaheim at a big plus price live, but I want to see how the game starts out before I jump in on that. So I'm going to take Edmonton goal in the first 10 over 6.5 pregame. Alex, what do you think? Anaheim, Edmonton.
So that's, my plays, to set up this series kind of, dictate what I'm doing in game one. I already have plus 500 on Edmonton as a result of Anaheim to lose the first round. I've added Anaheim to win game one, Edmonton to win series plus 340 based off of that stat. Like you mentioned, Edmonton, struggling in round one, game ones. So I don't have to touch a side here. Those are my 2 ways to attack the side already done. I can just wait for this total to drop in game, which is what I'm going to do. I'm waiting for the over by effective. We can get maybe, like I said, a kind of just slow feeling out process like we've seen so far. Maybe wait for 5.5. At a decent price for the full game. I can wait for not just a 1.5 at a plus price. I can wait for that half a goal like I did with Vegas, Utah last night. Try and get that at something in minus 125, 130, and wait for a late goal in this period. I think we could see this one kind of start off slow and then really explode throughout the game. So over by effective in game is what I'm looking for at adjusted prices, but I'm already kind of pot committed to Anaheim winning this game via Anaheim to win game one and Edmonton win the series at plus 340.
There you go. Great stuff. That is definitely something I might dabble in too. Now that you mentioned it, I forgot that obviously this is game one. The series hasn't started yet. The market for game one series combo is still available. So yeah, that given Edmonton's game one struggles, I think a little Anaheim game one Edmonton series, is not bad. And remember, a lot of those were LA. Because they played LA 4 straight years prior to this year. But I remember last year they were down 2-0. We were ready to almost starting to write Edmonton off after they got down 2-0 to the LA Kings last year. So we know they've had issues starting series at their absolute best. And so that's definitely something to factor in. Maybe that opens the door a bit for Anaheim. But boy, just hated the way their defensive play was trending down the stretch and the penalty kill. That's going to have to be a point of focus for the Anaheim Ducks going into this game and this series tonight. As far as props go, of course, we really got in heavily on Matt Savoy before the series for 2+ goals, 3+ goals at plus 1,200 at DraftKings was the bargain bin special that I gave out for the playoff preview show. And obviously, I'm going to take him to score a goal tonight, which, shockingly now, they've finally made an adjustment, not bargain bin price for Matt Savoy tonight. Best out there is still a good price, plus 280 at some spots, but it does not make that plus 300 because I certainly had an eye on him being a bargain bin tonight. Not going to be possible because plus 280 is the best price out there for him. Bouchard, he's going to be a big, on the power play. He seems to be a guy that scores more goals in the playoffs. I've noticed that the last few years. So, Evan Bouchard goal prop, I could definitely see that. Going into this game tonight, and you're getting plus 400 in some spots with that. That's worth a look. Savoy, we've talked about with Connor McDavid and Hyman, Podkolzin, and it could be Kapanen. It's been a revolving door. Who's going to play alongside a likely returning Leon Draisaitl on the second line, but I'm seeing Podkolzin and Kapanen right now. There's definitely going to be, those are always going to be players that I'm looking to bet. Players that are lined up with Draisaitl on that second line. And as of now, it looks like that's going to be Podkolzin and Kapanen here tonight for the Edmonton Oilers. As far as Anaheim goes, I kind of feel like for Anaheim, other than Leo Carlsson, I kind of want to be looking at players that have had some success in recent playoffs when they've had an opportunity. Cutter Gauthier, of course, is always going to be a threat, but don't be shy to look at Chris Kreider, Mikael Granlund, a few more of the veteran Killorn, a few more of the veteran faces for Anaheim. The guys that have been in the Stanley Cup playoff wars before. That's kind of what, especially in game one, while a lot of the younger players experiencing Stanley Cup playoff hockey for the first time get their feet wet. Alex Killorn doesn't have to get his feet wet. He's played in a ton of playoff games. Mikael Granlund's been in the playoffs many a time. Dallas last year, most recently. Chris Kreider has been in the playoffs a ton in his career, all with the Rangers. So from that standpoint, that's kind of the three players that stick out as players I'm looking at for props for Anaheim tonight. The guys that have had that experience, been in the playoff wars before, like Kreider, like Granlund, like Killorn. Definitely I'm interested as far as goal props and props of any kind regarding them here tonight in game one. All right, shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Again, Rachel, great job once again on with us.
Yeah.
Make sure you check out Betalytics, first of all, the site that Rachel's with. Great NHL betting tool, especially for props. And, of course, wizardsportspicks.com, daily premium picks. Check out all the great handicappers there, wizardsportspicks.com, patreon.com/Ice Guys, $10 per month. 2 Patreon-exclusive live betcasts coming up this week for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you're going to want to get on board sooner rather than later. 2 betcasts. We're excited about both of them. And they're only accessible to Patreon Ice Guys members. And in addition to access to those exclusive live betcasts during the Stanley Cup playoffs, you'll have goalie charts, totals charts, any bonus content, and, of course, the daily betting card, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page. So get on board. Your membership goes a long way to supporting the show and keeping it going long term. So get on board for the playoffs, $10 per month, patreon.com/Ice Guys.
And also check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. We've got hoodies, we've got caps, we've got T-shirts, we've got all kinds of wonderful items for you to grab right now during the playoffs and for springtime. So check that on out. That's the Ice Guys store. That's iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
No doubt. And the Dub Club discount for me is still there for Patreon members as well. So check that out. If you like MLB, UFL, all the other stuff, NBA playoffs, tons of that. So check that out if you're interested. All right, bargain bin special of the night and best bets coming up right after we hear from our great Ice Guy sponsors.
Wizard Sports Picks, featuring the finest handicappers in the universe. Sharp insights, trusted picks, and relentless results. We strive to help you become consistent winners. This is Wizard Sports Picks.
All right, bargain bin special of the night here for this Monday in NHL Stanley Cup playoff action, 3 game twos, and of course game 1 with Anaheim Edmonton all on the board. Alex, we'll start with you. Bargain bin special of the night.
Yeah, we got 2 of them. First, we'll start that Keystone State battle, game 2, and like I said, Sidney Crosby's coming to play after getting shut down and his team taking that loss in game 1. I like him to score not once but twice. Plus 1,100 over at FanDuel's best price I found available. So Sidney Crosby to get 2 goals. That's my first bargain bin special. Second, when we go to that Minnesota-Dallas game, like I said, everybody wearing green and black's got to step it up tonight in game 2 down there in Big D, and that's most notably the captain, Jamie Benn. You can get him anytime goal scorer, plus 425 over at BetMGM. So Sidney Crosby, 2 goals, plus 1,100 at FanDuel. Jamie Benn, anytime goal, plus 425 at BetMGM. Those are my 2 bargain bin specials tonight.
All right, great stuff. I've got 2 as well. I'm going to Ottawa, Carolina, and I'm going to the workhorse from Whitehorse, Dylan Cousins for the Ottawa Senators at plus 320. Best price out there at BetMGM and DraftKings. That will be my first bargain bin special of the night. My second bargain bin special of the night, I had to make a switch here because I had all planned out to use Matt Savoy, but then holy shit, Matt Savoy's not actually bargain bin price range. So we had to pivot, and we will go to Minnesota Dallas for this one. We'll go with Maverick Bourque, plus 400. Best price available for him. Still on that second line. Everybody outside of, well, Jason Robertson got their one goal, but everyone needs to step it up. And Maverick Bourque had been red hot before game one, where the whole team had an awful game. So I definitely like Maverick Bourque here, plus 400 at that price especially. So there you go. Dylan Cousins, Ottawa, plus 320, and Maverick Bourque, Dallas, plus 400 for my bargain bin specials for Monday night. All right, best bets. Alex, what do you got for best bet?
Yeah, let's go with Flyers and Penguins. And like I said, I think the game opens up, but it's going to take a little bit later for that to happen. So give me both teams to score in the second period. Plus 138 is now available at FanDuel for that price. So that we can see that game open up there. Give me a goal each from the Flyers and Penguins in game 2 as the best bet.
I'm going to go to Anaheim, Edmonton, over 6.5, minus 130. I think we're going to see this one. Maybe not get the goals early because we have seen 7 first period unders, but the goals will flow second, third period at the very least. And I just really worried about the downward trajectory of that Anaheim team defensively. And I think Anaheim will score, though, a little bit. Connor Ingram, not many playoff games under his belt on his resume. So I do think Anaheim will chip in. Anaheim, Edmonton, over 6.5 for my best bet. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button on the way out. Great show. This is going to be a great week because we actually have now, it was just confirmed right before the show, talking to people. We got guests every day this week on the show, which is great to see. Tomorrow we're going to have Mohammed Jama, who's a longtime listener of the show. He's been on the show a few times in the past. He's going to be with us tomorrow on the Tuesday show. We got original member of the Ice Guys show now confirmed on Wednesday, Andrew McGinnis.
Nice.
He's going to join us Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thursday, we're going to have both Jordan Sambrook, our buddy, who's about to start another Florida Everblades playoff run in the ECHL, along with Ryan Sura, 2 guests on Thursday. And we got Rob Shrimp joining us on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And he's been on before, former pro hockey player, NHL, drafted by the Islanders. You know the story. He'll be with us on Friday. So it's a great week. Lots of stuff, lots of guests. Very much looking forward to it and hope you guys enjoy it. And, of course, 2 Betcasts, Patreon exclusive this week. So make sure you get on board on the Patreon page. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith, for Rachel Kryshak, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Monday. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will see you tomorrow on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern for another edition of the Ice Guys.